Hello everybody, today I'm going to talk about Python, servers and Linux. Right, so what is a server? When I'm talking about servers in this video, it's going to be either in the cloud or on-premise. So those are kind of the two options that you will have. Even if it's in the cloud, you will still have an option of configuring it as if it's your own. So you either have platform as PaaS, platform as a service, IaaS, infrastructure as a service. So depending on what you choose, you will either have a server already configured for you, just you put the software on it and off you go. You can get bare metal, which is where you just put on your own operating system and you configure everything. Or what I've used recently is a VPS, which is a virtual private server. So it's already got Linux on it. You can choose Ubuntu, Alma, Fedora, so on. It also has Python available on it. So when you normally purchase some cheap web hosting, which I've done in the past, you will typically get a server, possibly still running Python 2.72 if you're lucky. Mine actually did upgrade it recently, but only recently. So prior to that, prior to about 3 months ago, I just had 2.7 on the server and it was of no use. What I've got here on my server, which I'm about to show you. So what we're looking at here is a company which provides you with VPS, very fast VPS servers. You can choose Intel Xeon, Ryzen, AMD Ryzen, amazing water-cooled single-thread performance. You've got a choice of location, Europe and North America. Now, I'm showing this because this is a VPS, virtual private server. You can configure everything on it. You can configure Python. You can do sudo apt get install whatever packages you want on it, set up your own databases. You could install Docker on it. You can do whatever you want. Also, you pay a fixed monthly fee, which is nice, which is unlike Google, Amazon. And I know they say that you actually just pay for what you use, which is true. But I know from experience, after my Google Cloud Platform trial ran out, I thought it was just sitting there doing nothing, and I forgot to shut down one of the servers, and before I knew it, I was already getting my 90% threshold warning. And for not even doing anything, it cost me £6 in the first month, which I know that doesn't sound much, but you start scaling that up, and then you could end up paying lots of money for nothing. Whereas with this, from 2.5 euros per month, you get a dedicated IPv4 address as well, which you will keep. So yeah, just quickly cutting across to the operating system. I've shown this in a previous video, so you can choose Ubuntu, you can choose Nginx already pre-installed. I don't even know why you need to select those, because once you've got the server set up, you can install whatever you want. You got Ubuntu, choice of 3 operating systems, Ubuntu or these other ones. So if you're in a production or a corporate environment, you probably will want to go with Alma Linux 9, I would guess, because it's more up to date and it's SE Security Enhanced Linux, which is better for enterprise, corporate, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I'll let you choose whichever one of those is most suitable for your use. But the point here is that if you configure a server from scratch, you will learn many more things. I've learned many more things than when I've previously I've used, who is it? Heroku, who are about to stop giving the free dynos as of 28th of November this month, I believe. So you've got Heroku, you've got Python Anywhere, AWS, Google. Now, these all make deploying code easy or easier for you, which in one way is good, but after 2 weeks of 2 weeks of swearing, lots of research, I've learned way more than I ever would have done if I'd just gone and tried to deploy my Python code onto GCP or Heroku. So, and also I prefer this payment model because you just know what you're paying each month. You're not going to end up thinking, oh no, I've left that server running and I didn't even want it running, and oh, now it's done loads of stuff, and I don't know, maybe you get DDoS on it or something, and then just, because typically with a cloud server, you pay for, not for the incoming traffic, but you pay for the outgoing traffic. I know that's true of Oracle, and I think it's true of Google, don't quote me on that. But let's just have a look at what I've done. So in a previous video, I showed where I was starting to deploy a Django app with GUnicorn, Nginx, and HTTPS. I've now done all of these things, and had I tried to do this with Google Cloud, Amazon, etc., half of these things may have already been configured for me. SSL certificates probably, or possibly might have been just one-click install or something. I know it sounds the wrong way around, but sometimes it's better to do things the hard way. So I've actually learned how to deploy, not only have I learned how to deploy a Django app, I've also learned how to deploy it from GitHub as well. So write your codes, I've written it in VS Code, git commit. Also within your project folder, when you're writing your Django app, so when you do create a Django app, you'll do Django admin, start project, and then your project name. That'll create your top level folder. Within that top level folder, I've also created my GUnicorn conf. Where is it? Here. The config/GUnicorn. So I've created that in the top level folder inside my Django project. And that's very useful because it means when you commit to Git, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, whatever, you do a git commit, and then that pushes up this folder and this structure, which means if you create a Git action, a workflow action, it will deploy all of the code, including the config GUnicorn parts of it. And then at the end of the GitHub action, you can then just say GUnicorn, run GUnicorn. I can't remember what the exact syntax is. Down here, GUnicorn-c config/GUnicorn. So why am I talking about GUnicorn? GUnicorn is the virtual server that needs to convert the Python language into HTML ready for Nginx to serve. So I know this is very specific, but what I'm trying to illustrate here is that if you buy a VPS server, it's a blank server, but it's got Linux on it, and and if it hasn't got Python on it, you're totally able to install Python and whatever else you want onto it. It's a way of actually immersing yourself in Python and Linux rather than being spoon-fed by a cloud provider or Heroku or Python Anywhere. I'm sure they're really good, and if you're in a hurry and you just want to get it up and show it off to people, then that's probably a good way. But again, they are effectively their frameworks. Now I'm using Django, which is a framework, but I don't particularly want to go into the dark world of writing lots of authentication, and I don't really, CSRF, cross-site. Because it's going on the internet, it needs to be secure. I don't want to write something myself, so I'm going to have to use a framework for that. But what I'm saying is, I have not used a framework for the server. So the server is it's in Scandinavia somewhere, and it's chugging away or going really fast, with some flashing lights in a big cabinet, in an aisle, in a data center, very secure. And yeah, you can get that for say 2.5 euros per month. That's the cheapest. This profile is only suitable for microservices or very small websites. But to be honest, you've got SSD, you've got a 250 megabit port. If you do upgrade, I think you get, if you get up to $4.99 a month, you get a gigabit port, so you get really fast network connections, dedicated IP address, and so on. But yeah, Europe, USA, Intel or Ryzen, create a server in 2 minutes. The speed of it is amazing. The control panel is really nice. Again, I am kind of advertising these, but what I'm saying is use a VPS. Don't be lazy. Don't use cloud. Cloud's fine, but if you really want to learn how to put stuff together, if you want to understand how GUnicorn talks to Nginx, HTTP headers, SSL, again, you've got certbot, so you'll need to use this article, realpython.com, Django, Nginx, Gunicorn. I've talked about this in a previous video, so I'm not going to go over old ground, but servers are necessary if you want to deploy your code. Right, with deploying code, one of the other considerations is, how do you deploy it? Do you deploy it via Git? Do you use something like Puppet? So deploying your code is important, obviously. Also, when you write your code, you may be writing it, and I've had this recently, you may write your code in a really current version of Python, 3.10, 3.9, whatever. You may often find, because the servers in production are long-term support LTS servers, they may still be stuck back on Python 3.6, for instance, and there will be packages that don't work. There will be methods and classes from some of the modules that don't work. So bear that in mind. So whenever you're writing some code, always think where it's going to be deployed, how it's going to be deployed. And if you don't like the way it's going to be deployed, well, research another way to deploy it, if they will let you. If you've got total control over this, I would say the simplest way to do all of this is to set up one of these Webdock servers in 2 minutes with Ubuntu. That RealPython article will get you set up with Nginx, GUnicorn. There's a bit of configuration to do with Nginx, which is a bit fiddly. But once that's all set up, you can modify your website, your Django site. You can modify it in VS Code. I don't know if I still got VS Code open. You can modify it in VS Code, and yeah, I have. You can deploy it from VS Code, because what you do is you will just do a git push from VS Code. The git push will push it up to GitHub. Once it's with GitHub, GitHub will run the workflow actions, and if you write that correctly, that will then transfer it. It will zip it. It will SCP it onto your virtual private server. It will unzip it, and then if you've added any additional scripts to run, such as GUnicorn-c conf and all that, it will start up Nginx, GUnicorn, etc., etc. So from typing git push here, pressing enter, that's deployed it. And to be honest, the GitHub workflow actions, you can find ones on the internet that other people have done in really your editing. What you also need to do is you also need to go in and create you create your username, password, IP address, and port. You create those 4 things as secrets in GitHub. I'm not going to do it here because it's I'd end up showing some things I didn't want to show, but and also if you're using GitLab or if you're using Bitbucket, it might be different. But what you basically do is you add those 4 secrets into your source control, and then when the runner, I think it's called a runner in GitLab, isn't it? Workflow action in GitHub, same thing. So what it does is it takes your code, it deploys it to a Docker image of a Ubuntu. It'll test it. It'll see if it runs. If it runs, it will proceed, and then it will tar it, SCP it across to the IP address which you've stored as a secret. And ultimately, you will get either a pass or a fail. And if you get a little green dot in GitHub for your repo, you'll know that it's been deployed, and happy days. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about servers really, because the temptation these days is to do everything on the cloud. And from personal experience over the past 2 weeks, I've learned a lot by doing things on a virtual private server. And for 2.5 euros per month, you get your own dedicated IPv4 address. Even with the bottom package, you can go up to some really nice packages up here as well. I mean, yeah, 10 cores, 20 gig of RAM, 200 gig SSD. So if you're running a business with a kind of a big website and e-commerce site, then this is definitely worth looking at. So yeah, Webdock. But even if you don't choose Webdock, have a look at another VPS, because kind of just the little voice on your shoulder or in your head should just say, don't be lazy, don't use Heroku, don't use Python anywhere. Don't just do it the easy way. Do it the old school way, learn how everything fits together. You'll probably hate me for this because you'll think, well, that's just really stupid and you can just do it with a click of 2 buttons. But if you just click 2 buttons on everything in life, then you don't really learn much, do you? So I'm not being patronizing. I'm almost talking as if I'm talking to myself from 2 weeks ago. So I'm also probably a bit smug because I've managed to get it working, and it's not easy. But yeah, if you go to Real Python, that article's there. And this doesn't just apply to Django. You could be trying to deploy something with Flask, Fast API. You can also write APIs with Django. I might try that in the future. Again, I'm not really pro frameworks as such, but if you want to do a project, especially if you've got a little idea to make some money or to start your own little business idea, what is it they say, from small acorns or something, or every long journey starts with a step. But yeah, I think in this day and age, you just have to kind of think like an entrepreneur. If you just want to be a coder all your life, you're probably restricting what your future, unless you become one of the top coders in the world and you go and work in Silicon Valley, you're probably not going to be, you're just going to plod along. So yeah, be an entrepreneur. There's a very famous quote, actually. I think it was George W. What was it? It was one of the American presidents, anyway, who weren't very, very cultured, shall we say? And they said the problem with the French is they don't have a word for entrepreneur. Yeah, think like an entrepreneur. Don't think like a coder. So that's my new direction. And again, I'm probably kind of sounding quite, I don't know, just whatever. Do what you want, but don't always just take the easy option. And yeah, see you next time.